people want to hide their IP address. What is that? So when you go online, you're given what's called an IP address from your service provider, which basically says this is where you're at, or at least this is where you're generally at in terms of location. And people might not like that, so they would try to hide it through some tools. People don't want people to know where you're at. Web tracking, like I talked about with visiting my website. You leave a digital footprint with your IP address on almost every site you go to. Whether that you throw an error on the web page, that IP address that you're on gets logged. So how do you hide your 800-pound gorilla? You can use free Wi-Fi. So go to like a Starbucks or McDonald's, and if you didn't want anyone to know what you were doing, what you were accessing, that's one thing you can do. Use a secure browser, such as Tor. Opera has one as well, where it kind of anonymizes where you're going and what you're doing. Use a private VPN service, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Go back to dial-up. There are people that still use dial-up to do good things and bad things, but that's one way where you can kind of help mitigate some of that tracking. Another thing you can do is you can set up RF data transfers over CB radio. So you can go to one building, set up a relay station, if you will, and broadcast internet from their location all the way back to your house, and no one will know where you're actually at. So a private VPN service, essentially what it does is you pay to play, and it encrypts your data and sends you to a different type of server, a different type of, almost like a different internet service altogether, where no one knows where you're actually accessing from, except from this new location. Be careful when you're choosing a private VPN service, because there's a good majority of them that if they're based in the US, by law they have to, at least when I last checked, they have to keep a log of everything that your user account logged into and where you went. So it defeats the whole purpose of using a private VPN service. So just usually when you look at like web forums or different websites that do reviews, they'll list it out there. Like someone will say, hey, they log, you don't want to use this. But again, you can also use free Wi-Fi. So if we're going to compare a VPN and Tor, Tor basically anonymizes what you're doing, where VPN keeps, quote unquote, you protected from a sense of no one really knows what you're, I shouldn't say no one knows, but it's harder to determine what you're doing and how you're doing it. And so on the left and on the right, compare those two.